William Freeland, and you're watching Candid Frank Live, the program where we have fun talking about news and sports. We concentrate on Canada. It doesn't mean we ignore what happens in the U.S. Sometimes there are newsworthy items, not only news but also sports. We like to concentrate on Canada too. So let's start with our sports, and this is one of these things I can't convince Aaron not to cover. So we'll talk about Formula One.
I know it's the bane of everybody's existence. It's that whole go fast sort of thing. But
Hit
yeah,
me with it, buddy.
this season is starting off the way that last season did. Basically, Red Bull is currently dominating. This is the second time that they've gone 1-2 in the second race of the season. Again, Sergio Perez won in Saudi Arabia. Verstappen worked his way all the way up from 15th. There was a little bit of fun there. Fernando Alonso was actually originally in third, but after being assessed a 5-second time penalty for improper position on the starting grid, he was assessed an additional 10-second penalty for a jack touching the car too soon while he was parked in the pits, serving said 5-second penalty and incurred a second 10-second one. However, Aston Martin successfully lobbied the FIA to have the penalty overturned because other teams had touched their cars with jacks before and they hadn't been penalized. So FIA said, well, it's your 100th win. That's your 100th podium. Sorry, we're not going to take that away from you and let them have it.
Well, they didn't let them have it, Aaron. They basically the normal way the rules are dispensed, right?
I was a bit of a mea culpa by them on this one to sort of hand it back to him, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it would be inconsistent officiating if they took it away from them. If they took those 15 seconds, that's the difference. Okay, let's go over to the WBC, the World Baseball Classic. Canada's out.
Yeah, it wasn't really a surprise. There was some hope that was there, and Canada did play well. We just unfortunately don't have the same sort of pool of talent to draw from that other countries do. In particular, when it comes to the States and when it comes to Cuba and what have you, they have a deeper talent pool. Canada put up a good showing, but unfortunately it wasn't exactly all that we'd hoped for. Now, the other thing is there are already calls for the WBC to be dropped, mainly because some players have come up injured in these things, which keep them away from their Major League Baseball employers. The most recent casualty was Jose Altuve. That needs surgery on a fractured thumb because he was hit by a pitch. There was another player that blew out his knee. And again, all these sorts of things are injuries that can happen even in spring training. So the calls for the WBC to be terminated is just a little out of it.
Well, it's all about, it's all about making the game more international. Not that it isn't international, but it gives an opportunity. I know from our experience with hockey in Canada here that the players love playing for their country. It's a thrill to play for their country, wear their flag, and play for their friends and family back home. So it's an opportunity. The players enjoy it. The question is, if you're not going to do anything, and this I hold the WBC to this little thought. If you're not going to do anything because there's a chance you might get hurt, I'm not walking across the street, Aaron. I'm
Yeah.
not getting in my car. Aaron, I'm not going into the bank. Aaron, I'm not sure I'm going to go to the washroom. I think I'm going to stay on the couch.
Well, if you slip on the tiles in the bathroom, it could be pretty bad.
My point is that things can happen. They're rare, but for those things to happen, it would have to be something that truly affects baseball. Yes, in a very very concentrated sense. Altuve's gone. His season is threatened. His team's best results are in danger. But the game of baseball is something that players have a right to enjoy too, and I think really this will be a players against owners type of thing. This situation here, because I don't think the players don't want to play because somebody got hurt. They are under contract after all.
No, this is true. But and again, the chance to represent your country is huge. The other thing to consider here as well, Frank, is games are being played in Taichung, Taiwan. in Tokyo, as well as in Phoenix and Miami. So players like Shohei Ohtani have an opportunity to play in front of home crowds, which is something that doesn't happen very often for them because they're employed by Major League Baseball, which is primarily a North American thing. Um, so this is one of those opportunities where it's a huge chance for them to grow the game.
And again, it widens the audience for Major
Yeah.
League Baseball and baseball in general. And you know, it is what it is. However they decide, I mean, the powers that be, whatever they are, I'm not in that room. I'm not in the place where they make the final decision about something like this. But all I can say is every other world championship suffers under the same constraints of being involved that this one does. It's ironic too because baseball is not the sport that hockey. They're not hitting each other when they when, so again this doesn't make baseball look that good. But somebody might get hurt. I don't think we should play. It just doesn't run. You run it up my flagpole. Don't like it. Lots of grease on the pole. You're not making it up there. The U.S. took care of a Cuba very easily, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. That was a 14-2 win. That puts them into the championship. Now, the other semifinal game two, is actually going to be played in Miami, and that's going to be between Mexico and Japan. So that's going at 7 o'clock tonight on Fox Sports One, and I believe it's also on Sportsnet if you have it. So that's a perfect opportunity for you to turn in and see what all the hullabaloo is about.
Speaking of Canadian sports, curling is on the
So
news.
the women's yeah. Uh, the Women's World Curling Championships is back on as it currently stands. Carrie Einerson and her rink have improved to 4-1 in the round robin with a sweep of her matches on Monday in the World's Women Curling Championship. Einerson, Val Sweeting, Shannon Burchard, and Brienne Harris downed Italy's Stefania Constantini 7-2 in the morning draw. Also, 1-9-8 over Scotland's Rebecca Morrison in the late session. This moves Canada into sole possession of second place behind Switzerland's Silvana Tirinzoni, who's at 5-0. So, they are going to be playing the Swiss on Tuesday afternoon at Gordon Arena before playing New Zealand in the evening. So this is something to keep an eye on. It's a lot more fun to watch on TV than it is in person, I've found. But at the same time, this is a great opportunity to get more exposure for the sport.
It's a game like darts that
Yeah.
has a little side thing going on. There's a side thing going on where it's a fun event. The tailgate begins at the first rock and doesn't end until after the last rock has been thrown, for as long as you can talk about what happened in the game. Let's talk about the QMJHL. They tighten rules around fighting. There's a lot of talk about that, and with all this talk, uh, will there be change, Aaron? Do you think something will happen besides this? But first, explain to us what the QMJHL is doing.
Okay, so basically, what's happening here is the QMJHL, or Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, is looking to tighten up some of the rules. There's oftentimes there are fights, obviously, in junior hockey, and you're looking at kids, literally kids between the ages of 16 and 21, who are going out there and trying to punch each other's lights out. It's not uncommon for some players coming out of junior hockey to have had 5 to 10 concussions as a result of different fights because they're young, they're developing, they're not told, or trained properly and that sort of thing. There are players who have 15 to 20 concussions. Mentalities around this are obviously evolving. Hockey's evolving. You're seeing less and less fighting in the NHL. As a result, the Q has said that they've been working since about 2020 towards banning fighting, and they aren't getting as much pushback from coaches and players as they expected. So it could potentially be something that passes relatively quickly. And again, it's a
I think
culture shift to protect players.
I think, and I hope, I don't mean this other than I just think that the Western Canadian Hockey will be the toughest league to get fighting out of. I don't know why
No,
I'm
I
saying it, but I have a sense. It's just a sense. I don't have anything heavy to base it on.
No, it's entirely possible. I mean, there have been times when the Quebec junior leagues were seen as the rougher leagues, and indeed, some of the senior leagues in Quebec have been some of the most violent around. But it's been trending away from that for a while.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Maple Leafs and Aston Reese had 2 goals in a game, which basically was a good game for him, and he needed it because of all these players that the Leafs have brought in. That bottom six, there's a real battle to be in that bottom six, and they're starting to look like with his kind of play that he's had recently, he could be cemented into the fourth line, and that fourth line will develop a kind of a reputation, won't it?
Well, that's one of those things that I think a lot of Leafs fans have been really happy about is the fact that Zach Aston Reese has been fitting in as well as he has, especially when it comes to his play in the bottom six. Um, it's one of those situations where it was the start of a back-to-back weekend for the Leafs. They started off with playing the Hurricanes on St. Patrick's Day, wearing their St. Patty's Day jerseys. They managed to come out of that with a 5-2 win, despite getting dominated at points throughout the game. Samsonov made 32 saves for the Maple Leafs, so that was good for him. But it's one of those cases where, at times, even though they were getting outplayed, they still managed to come out on top, which was a good thing.
I think they played a really good game considering how it seems. And but then you look at their recent record. I think they've won like 4 or 5, maybe 6 games in a row against Carolina. They're a team that they used to have a lot of grief against. And of course, the word was the Zamboni driver couldn't play net for them, so they had to play their. Never mind, I'm just kidding. That would have been a better chance for Carolina if they'd have played the Zamboni goaltender, but they didn't. With David Morisudi's show that I did with him, I was talking about Morgan Riley, as you know, has not played very well recently, but in that game and the other game after that, and the game before these two this weekend, he has found his game back. And what really impressed me was his shot was back. And then I did the show with David, and he asked if I thought the Leafs had a chance against Carolina. I said, yeah, they have a great chance. That last game that they played that they lost in overtime, they're going to come out firing. And their goaltender for me has been very consistent. And I really like the fact that Morgan Riley's shot is back. I know that sounds crazy because a lot of what people criticized about him in recent times is his defensive play, his skating ability, being caught, passes that are errant. Well, his passes and his shooting has been as good as it's ever been these last 2 games.
Now, he's finally started to round back into game shape, and I know there's a lot of folk that are breathing a sigh of relief over that one. It had been touch and go for a while when he came back. People were wondering if the time off due to injury had blunted his edge too much. So glad to see that he's finally rounding back.
And the good news is that with some of the additions on the team, he can concentrate on doing what he does best. It's not important that he play outside himself. He needn't consider himself a physical presence on the back line. He needn't consider himself strictly, live or die on the power play. Gustafson's in there for that. They've got big old number 2 in there to handle the physical stuff. And they've got some mobile defensemen now that put a little pressure, take a little pressure off him, but the kind of mobility that they can go into the other end and actually stir things up a little bit, like McCabe did. McCabe's been very effective that way. So, as far as I'm concerned, I'm really happy with the way Riley's playing for the sake of the team because he needs to be, Aaron. When you look at that team and the way it's made up and you look at the defense, he has to be their best defenseman.
Yeah, there's no other way around it. Based on his contract alone, he has to be their best defenseman.
I'm not even talking about the contract, but you're right. That's sort of you put the thumb on the scale there with that one. But that's just the issue. The issue is he really is playing well and good for him. And then they went on and played Ottawa, and they went 8 rounds in the shootout before deciding who would win. And the winning goal was scored by nobody else other than, I'll let you tell the story.
Yeah, other than the much maligned Alex Kerfoot, who finally got to be the hero in the ninth round of the shootout. So that was nice. That was nice to see for a change. Murray played a really, really solid game. There
Aaron, he
were
made the play that I had in my head watching that goaltender. Kerfoot did exactly what I was I wasn't yelling at the TV, but I was looking at the opening and the way the goaltender was playing. That little flick of the wrist to fake one side and then basically go to the other down the middle. He that deceptive direction change that he did is what I wanted to see, and it was amazing. He came out and he did it, and it's a young goaltender. The Leafs can't miss these kinds of opportunities. A young goaltender with not much experience. Here he is in the shootout. I mean, my goodness, you have to beat them. If you're at that point, you've got to do something. Your lineup has to do something. It just surprised me that it was Kerfoot, but
He's
good for him.
consistent. He's consistently been one of the guys that players have said actually has one of the best moves when it comes to that sort of thing. But going up against Mad Sogard, who's 6'7", by the way, that is a big boy. He covers pretty much the entirety of the net when he goes down in the butterfly. But you kind of have to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
You can predict how he's going to go, where he's going to move, and there was that space that Kerfoot just happened to find.
Well, look what he did to Nylander. I mean, he made a great save with his toe on the open side, but he didn't really have to stretch.
No.
He just had to bend. Hey, listen, the kid's a good goaltender. He's going to be a great goaltender. We'll see what happens to him in the future. For now, the Leafs beat the Ottawa Senators. The Senators, of course, that game meant a lot to them, as every game against the Toronto Maple Leafs means to them. And it was a well-attended Maple Leaf fan hockey game once again, where you couldn't tell whether it was in Ottawa or Toronto, and the Leafs came up the winners. And Austin Matthews, a pretty good weekend for him too, Aaron.
No, most definitely. This is one of those things where everything is slowly starting to click again for them. There had been complaints in the earlier parts of the season that Matthews had seemed to have lost his step and seemed to have been injured. But it looks like he's managed to work through that. I know in the past couple of weeks he's mentioned the fact that he feels fine, and Keefe says that he's reporting that he feels okay during practices. So for the most part, it's been working out. But now we're starting to see a little more concrete evidence to the fact that Matthews is actually okay. So that's got to be a relief for some fans as well.
Now, Murray has let, what is it, 6 games in a row, 4 goals plus in
Yeah,
the game,
it's
right?
it's
But
been
this
a bit
was
of an issue.
49 shots. This was 49 shots.
Yeah.
I mean, Aaron, in fairness to him, he really did do a good job. And yes, of course, a shutout would have been better. But gall darn, 49 shots. Come on, he did okay, and he has to do well because Samsonov is looking forward to his new baby coming into the family,
Mhm.
and hopefully he's not gone long. Just because I don't think they can't give Murray too much work because they're not sure whether he's physically 100% and or able to play continuously game after game. And they have 4 games this week, Aaron. They need their other goaltender.
Yeah. Now they've also brought Joseph Wall back up, and he's been practicing consistently with them as well. So at least it is good to know that there's that back there. Should Joseph Wall stumble, there is also Eric Shellgren, who's playing well with the Marlies as well. So
And has
um,
played well with the Maple Leafs over the last
yes.
couple of years. So yeah, that's important. The team looks pretty good, but how do you tell? You've got the Tampa Bay Lightning, who now have Florida on their heels, pretty far away. It doesn't look like Florida's going to have enough. There's enough time. They'll run out of runway before they can get to that playoff spot. So it still looks like it'll be Leafs, Tampa Bay. Who's the home team? Goodness knows. We'll find out, I guess.
Yeah, and the fact that Tampa Bay is managing to keep pace, especially after Hagel got a hat trick and they beat the Habs 5-3. We're not getting a lot of help from other teams in our division. That's no surprise. Obviously, that's going to be the sort of thing that's going to happen here. But with the Lightning currently only 3 points behind the Leafs, and the Leafs having 2 games in hand, that's going to be gone by the end of this week. We're going to be seeing them as even with them. We do have to consistently try to put more points on the board here. So,
Speaking of Tampa Bay, they were in Montreal.
yeah, that was a bit of a shellacking there. Glad to see Hakel get a hat trick. Was hoping that Montreal might have been able to do a little bit more to help us out, but at the same time, I understand. Hedman also scored for Tampa Bay. Now they're coming off back-to-back road wins against the New Jersey Devils, so there is that to consider. As Hedman said of the Lightning's third period domination, hey, we finally stepped on the gas. These are tough games. There's not an easy game in this league. We knew that coming in. Montreal has lost games, but they scored a lot of goals in those losses. So they knew they had to outscore Montreal.
Absolutely. The Winnipeg Jets won again. Pionk the hero.
So they were looking to put a stop to the surging Predators at this point. So the Young's overtime goal actually led them to a 3-2 win. It's good he got it early in the overtime. He scored 55 seconds in. Nikolai Ehlers and Adam Lowry also scored, and Connor Hellebuck made 18 saves for Winnipeg, who snapped a 2-game losing streak.
Unfortunately, they started another losing streak against the Blues immediately
Yeah.
after.
Yeah, Kapanen, Walker, and Varanus scored. It was a 3-0 win. Obviously, nothing going on the backside of that for the Jets. Now, Hofer started in place of the suspended Jordan Binnington. Jordan got 2 games for his punch to the head of a Minnesota Wild player after getting scored on last game. But Hofer came in and played well. This is actually his first NHL game since November 13th, 2021. But he's now 3-1-0 in the NHL.
Jason Robertson scores in overtime. It looks like the Calgary Flames, as far as the playoffs are concerned, they could be flaming out, Aaron.
Yeah, as the season continues to go on and the losses pile up, it looks like most of their playoff hopes are going up in smoke. That was Robertson's second goal of the game at 4:47 of overtime. Just 13 seconds left, and they could have gotten to a shootout. Sorry, but he managed to put it over Jacob Markstrom. I mean, it is what it is. Robertson is really good at finding the back of the net, so you give him a little bit of room, he's going to capitalize on that.
Kane had a hat trick. Chicago fans go, "Oh, we miss him." Wrong Kane. This one's with the Oilers.
It was his 6th career hat trick. So Evander had his second hat trick of the season, actually, and gave the Oilers a little bit of a cushion in the Western Conference with a 6-4 win over the Kraken. Connor McDavid had a goal and 2 assists, giving him 134 points for the season. That's the 7th most points by any player in the past 30 years. He got his 58th goal of the season on the power play with 3:50 remaining. I think it's entirely possible at this point here that with the number of games that are left in the season, Edmonton, 12 games left in the season here, I think he's going to break 60 easy. So
Vancouver Canucks Demko and his team make a comeback.
that's true. They actually had to try to tie everything up with the Los Angeles Kings. That was difficult. Elias Pettersson had a power play goal. Thatcher Demko had the 38 saves, and they won in a shootout. Brock Besser also had the other goal. JT Miller and Quinn Hughes also had 2 assists, and Demko saved a penalty shot. We haven't seen a lot of those this year, so it's always nice to see that.
Absolutely. Pettersson continues the hot streak for the Canucks, helping them beat Anaheim.
So, and again, this is something else that Vancouver needed. They are still damaging their opportunities to get Connor Bedard, but at least they're putting on a decent showing for the fans and giving them some hope for the future. Ryan Strome scored with 6:50 left in the third to spoil Delia's shutout. And Gibson had 38 saves for the Duck, but JT Miller had a goal and an assist to help them with that.
So we have very little time, a minute, maybe 2 minutes. Pick your story, your news story, Aaron.
Oh goodness. Okay. I'm just gonna go ahead here and talk about Manitoba. The election there is heating up. The opposition NDP have promised free birth control if they get elected in the fall. This is under part of its plan. The provincial government would cover the full cost of dozens of commonly used birth control methods, including oral contraceptives, copper and hormonal intrauterine devices, hormonal injections, and the morning after pill. Manitobans without health insurance or with only partial coverage can pay as much as $380 for an IUD, and birth control pills can cost upwards of $240 a year. Manitoba Health already covers certain contraceptive procedures, such as vasectomies, but for the rest of that, it's the freight is paid by the regular person. So the cost of implementing universal coverage of contraceptives is actually only $11 million a year. So it's a very affordable program, and it's a very easy thing to put into place.
My news story of the week is our premier here in Ontario feeling that he should throw money at private operations and stuff instead of helping our healthcare system deal on a regular basis with people who are waiting for treatment instead having to go to private clinics to be able to get it done. I don't have anything against a private clinic, but I don't think government should be working with private clinics. That's a to me that's a I don't know. To me, that just seems like it's not the right idea. The government should be offering public health. Um, how do you decide what private clinics you help? How does that all shake out? No, not happy with that. I think the government should support our hospitals better. Where you and I go on an emergency visit, for the most time, it's okay, but sometimes it can be pretty harrowing for somebody with an emergency going into an emergency clinic in our hospitals in Ontario. And if nothing was learned, the pandemic taught us one thing: we don't have as many beds as we think we do. But that is neither here or there right now. Thank goodness we're past that. Aaron, thanks for doing this, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me, Frank.
He's Aaron William Freeland. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Candid Frank Live. You can check out all our shows on Candid Frank Live on the YouTube channel, and hope to see you there. If not, we'll see you again on Wednesday when we'll do this all over again. Thanks for tuning, everybody. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, everyone. Enjoy your evening. Whatever you got planned, I hope it works out the best way it can. Thanks for doing this, everybody. Joining us, Aaron, for being such a great co